Hey film bros, this episode's for you. Welcome back to our feature presentation. How's it going, George? What's cracking?
My day was going alright until you just said that. Fuck's sake.
That's our new intro. Come on. That's who we are. That's what we represent. We are the voices of the film bros.
That's like when Tenet came out and Michael Caine's Twitter account tweeted, Christopher Nolan does it again. It's on level with that where... I don't know, Christopher Nolan's a really weird one because he kind of falls in that like Rick and Morty crowd where the thing itself, like the stuff he makes is good, but obviously the people around it, you can't help but let the fans of it ruin it for you with how just obnoxious they are.
Yeah. It is wince-worthy is how I would describe it.
To the point where when film bros get said, I think of Christopher Nolan and I automatically associate that with him now. Yeah.
It is what it is. How are things anyway? What have you been watching? You've been consuming media?
Not relevant media to this. I've been watching basketball. The NBA playoffs happened, which you nor anyone else cares about. Or I say happened, they started. They're gonna keep going for the next 2 months, keeping up till 4 a.m.
Fair. Brutal.
And yeah, just basketball and Elden Ring has been my week pretty much, other than our movie that we both saw.
Yeah, our movie that we both saw that hopefully we both enjoyed because it was just chaos on a movie standpoint. Let's talk about what I've watched because I actually watched movies this week for the first time ever in this podcast's history. I watched Nightmare Alley by Guillermo del Toro, and I thought it was a B+. I thought it was pretty good and pretty fun. Ticked all my boxes for what I expected when I went in, and I don't know, it had some fun, had some style. I know this is one that you've watched. The other film I've watched, I don't think you have. So let's talk about this one for a second first.
Well, yeah, it's funny you say it met like everything you were expecting, because it's in isolation as a movie, as the kind of noir story it goes for. It does hit all those boxes and all those genre conventions. It was a thing where when I saw it, I was expecting the kind of Del Toro fuckery to worm its way into the story, and in the end, it didn't. Yeah. So I don't know if I'd feel better about it watching it a second time, knowing what's actually going to happen, knowing what to expect. But yeah, leaving it, I was like, that was good, but a little bit disappointed. And yeah, like everything in there is good. Like all the performances are really great. Bradley Cooper's really good again. And yeah, it does still have a strong style to it and all that, and it finds a nice way of working in the noir elements. I mean, Cate Blanchett's office, it's the most like movie office of all time, but it like, really works.
Yeah, well, her whole shtick is like, I know it's like part of the tropes and everything of the genre that they're going through, but she is like, the way that she's like lit, fully like beauty lighting in every single shot, heavily made up in every single shot, even if she's just like run out of like a fucking cab in the rain or something, she still looks like visually whatever. And then you have like the whole, I don't know, it's just like it ticked every single box of like doing it right, in my opinion. And as you say, it does kind of avoid the standard Del Toro just like straight up nonsense that happens, like crazy monstery nonsense. But you can almost smell where he like got his kicks for a second and then put it aside. Like the introduction of the like kind of beast towards the start, the first time you meet the beast and the things that happen with that beast character. Like just it's that thing, isn't it? Of like you can tell where the studio wanted Del Toro to be. And then Del Toro was like, I'll do that for a second, and then why don't we do something else for a bit? And I don't know. I feel like he doesn't do enough, just stuff to like. This is maybe the first time I've seen a film of his where he's just doing like stuff rather than doing his own film. And you got like other films close to this, like what's it called? Crimson Peak.
Oh, God damn it.
Is that the name of it?
It's Crimson something. It's Crimson...
Crimson something. I think it is Crimson Peak. But either way, like that movie, fucking blows. That's really boring because like the only good part about it is like it's a vessel for him to do his dumb monster bullshit, and the monster bullshit's fun, but the rest of the movie's just absolute trash. It's like this time he's like done the polar opposite, where he's like he's accidentally cut his monsters out of it, but he's like done the rest of it really well, and so I just enjoyed it. I was taken on the ride. It was goofy, it was fun, and it, like, as I say, it ticked all the things that I expected to happen, right down to literally the end credits. What the end credits are overlaid over was like exactly what I was expecting after seeing the thing in the movie. So it ticked my boxes for me.
I have a couple of things to mention. Like, first, I agree with everything you just said, but it was the thing of how he's kind of like taken out the monster stuff. I'm just sort of, because I saw the movie 3 months ago, whenever it was, I'm just kind of like respin my thoughts of when I first watched it. My first thought actually leaving the cinema was I felt like I'd just been trolled. Because you're right, he's ripped out and taken away so many of the kind of like monster stuff that at least I went in kind of expecting him to find a way to put in. And he obviously, that is his whole thing with like Pan's Labyrinth and Crimson, or we'll say Peak, or Commit to Crimson Peak. I'm really annoyed I can't remember the name of it now. But like all the kind of, you know, out there, more not even surreal but fantastical elements and things like that. And it's kind of been a thing where his history is great movies that don't deliver or aren't great studio picks for them to produce and fund. And then finally he gets this movie where the whole point of the movie and the thing everyone talks about is the woman wanting to fuck a fish man. And that movie is the one that gets to go on to win all the Oscars and win Best Picture and everything like that. And he finally gets that kind of stamp of, he gets that like blank check now of, you are a name that has Oscars attached to it. You can do whatever you want. And then he goes and does the most like bare bones, straightforward story he could have possibly made. And it was just a thing where I was like, hang on, what the fuck is it? You had carte blanche to do anything possible and you chose to do this instead, which I guess I do have to respect in a way, because the opposite of going full blown monster crazy shit, everything happening all at once thing would have been probably really easy for him to try and do. So I can respect him just going to more like classical cinema story of, just like a mystery, spooky noir thing instead. Yeah.
And it kind of, it sucks that it got like completely just fucking annihilated by Spider-Man at the same time it was released, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like, it just is, it makes me laugh because it is like you just said, he got given the blank check. He made something that he just wanted to make for fun. And then now he's made like $0. And presumably there's questions about how many other blank checks are going to be written for him now. I don't know. It's a struggle movie. But
the studio really fucked up with that. I think was Universal the studio credit in front of it.
Can't even remember. Wasn't paying enough attention.
It came out the week between Spider-Man and Matrix. And even Matrix didn't do very well, if I remember correctly, because Spider-Man was just that huge.
Spider-Man,
yeah. So like Nightmare Alley had no chance.
Yeah, brutal. But I mean, it's like being hosted on Disney now. So like in the UK at least, it's hosted on Disney Plus. So I mean, that's like good news. Although it did like take actual searching to find. I only knew it was on there because it showed up in one of the adverts at my screening of the film for this film. But yeah, carry on. What's your second piece?
Sure. Well, with that Disney Plus thing, I'm not even sure how good a point that is, just because that kind of seems like the dumping ground for lots of movies now, where like that new Kingsman trailer movie, that was on Disney Plus like a month after it came out, and that was another one that kind of fell by the wayside of Spider-Man and everything. Something else big came out around that and just dwarfed it. I can't remember. And the same thing happened with that Death on the Nile movie, where I think that's already on Disney Plus because no one went to see it. Yeah. And the other thing I was going to say is a very minor thing, in that there is that kind of Beast Man character that shows up at the beginning of the movie. And I thought I would have bet money that guy was played by Tim Blake Nelson.
Oh, okay.
And then is it really a spoiler to just say Tim Blake Nelson shows up in the movie, but as a different guy? And that was another thing where I just felt completely trolled by the movie, going, you thought you expected this, but it's not. And I was just sat in my seat like, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah. I mean, but even like Tim Blake Nelson's whole shtick is like a bit of a mind fuck as well. Like, so the whole him showing up, you probably felt mega trolled, not just by the like the medium, but wild. By the story as well. Yeah. Banging.
He's so good as well in his short appearance. He's fucking amazing in that role. I mean, he's great in everything, obviously, but
yeah, no, he's really good. So that was that, and then in other films that completely delivered on everything that I assumed they were going to, I also watched The Adam Project with Ryan Reynolds, and it's a sci-fi time travel action comedy starring Ryan Reynolds. And everything I just said happens in it loudly. And it just it just ticks all the boxes of like, if you like, I know like love or hate Ryan Reynolds. If you go in watching a Ryan Reynolds movie, you kind of are doing it to yourself if you don't like him. Like, but the movie otherwise, like it just ticks all of those things. It just does all of those things and it does all of them really well. Like, it's just a fun flick. Like, it's definitely like, if you've watched the trailer and you've gone, oh, that looked kind of cool, you will find the movie kind of cool as well. It's just playful fun. So that was good. I would recommend, if you're, especially like the action is like really, really good. And not even just like big, dumb sci-fi action, which there's plenty of, but like not even just that, like even little Adam gets bullied by bullies at school. And like, I've never seen kids fighting choreography be like believable or like actual brutal, like instead of them just like really slowly like swinging and being obviously nowhere near the characters' faces and all that kind of stuff, it's like an actual like well choreographed, you feel every impact of everything, even down to the kids fighting in the movie. So it's like it's well made. It's like a really, really, really well made movie. So yeah,
I am part of the Ryan Reynolds prejudice clan in that I am just kind of sick of him at this point. The same thing happened with Free Guy, where even you were part of the people saying it isn't the kind of shit whatever movie it's marketed to be, or that you think it is, and there's more to it. And I saw and heard so many people saying that, and I just couldn't get past the mental barrier of knowing he's going to be in it doing his Ryan Reynolds shtick. I have nothing against the guy himself. He seems like quite a chill dude in terms of celebrities and actors.
Yeah.
But yeah. And
his humor's just not for everyone, yeah. So
yeah. And knowing what I know in terms of a plot point in the movie that someone told me, I feel like I'm really going to not like Ryan Reynolds, the volume of Ryan Reynolds, let's say.
Yeah. There is quite a lot of Reynolds. And not just Reynolds doing Reynolds either. It's like, I don't know whether you've seen like, have you seen Detective Pikachu? Did you ever watch that?
No, I missed that.
Where like the whole movie, Pikachu is like just Ryan Reynolds. Imagine that, except 3 of the characters in this movie are just Ryan Reynolds. So you gotta like it, or you gotta at least tolerate it. But to be fair, like it wasn't, for me, most of it, there's like 1 or 2 scenes where Ryan Reynolds kind of goes on for a bit too long with his shit. But the rest of it, like some jokes like actually landed because they were funny. Like as I say, it's just really well made in most aspects. So yeah, so check it if you like that kind of stuff, but know that it delivers on everything it promises. And if you don't like what it promises, then you won't like what it delivers on. But yeah, so there's that. This is an interesting one for news this week, George, because as we record this, seconds ago, almost, it was actually hours, but seconds ago, you don't know that, a big trailer that no one has seen before and has been waiting for ages and is almost scarily too close to the release date, got dropped. And that was the Thor Love and Thunder trailer. Have you seen it, George? Wow. George watches the trailer for the first time in history. Go on.
Yeah.
Tell me about
the last time. Yeah. I mean, my whole thing with Thor Chris Hemsworth in this movie is like it's a proper like 6 out of 10 on the interest scale. I know I'm going to see it, but I also am not that fussed.
Yeah.
So I just figured I'd give it a look. And to be fair, the trailer itself is it's like an obligation of a trailer.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Everything they show is what you already know is going to be in the movie.
Yeah. You just get pictures of what is written, everywhere else. And even down to like, not to like overanalyze because it is just a shit teaser trailer, but like even down to like the music choice and that kind of stuff, it just screams everything you thought was going to be in there. And it is the same with the poster that dropped. I think this poster slaps, but like I did not expect anything else from them. This is identical to what, you even look at the fan posters that most theaters have been using to like plug the movie and get ticket sales, pre-sales and stuff. Like everyone knew this is exactly what it was going to look and feel like. And I'm neither surprised nor disappointed, is what it is. And then you sent me this fucking image. Why'd you send me this image? Why am I going to see this?
I think it's just funny how like there's been a bit of discourse over recent years in terms of performance enhancement and steroid use in Hollywood in these films and how it's kind of like a hush-hush thing. I think the Kumail Nanjiani stuff with his transformation for Eternals sparked a lot of that again. But I mean, like, look at this fucking image. Like, it's just like so clear. And I'm not even against it. Like, I don't have some like moral obligation moral, what's the word? Not problem. But basically, I don't have a problem with Chris Hemsworth doing whatever it is he's doing to look like that. Because at the end of the day, it's a heightened character, and he is a fucking actual literal god in these films. So I don't mind having him do whatever it takes to look like that. But just be a bit transparent with people, because it's not a good look when people start trying to emulate this or wondering why they can't emulate this and all of that. Yeah. That's just kind of my take on it. And just out of context, it's a fucking hilarious image.
It is a very good image. I mean, it's not a very good image. It's a horrible image, and that's why it's very good. But yeah, no, but also like just to spin off your point there about like, no, I don't think anyone would care if they were out front about it and said it. But like, doesn't he or someone like his trainer or someone like his face, name and signature is attached to a company that is actually selling like workouts and dietary plans and stuff to get people to look like, so this company will, this might be slander, allegedly this company like his face comes up like look like Chris Hemsworth after X amount of months just by eating this or just by doing this workout and stuff. And this was like central to the whole debate, right? When the Eternal stuff happened, because like no one can do that quickly. No one can do that like efficiently without some kind of like a little bit of chemical help, perhaps. So like the idea that maybe his trainer, maybe someone allegedly is like making money off the like process that is very blatantly, this image alone proves that the process will not do what it says it will do. That spooks me a little bit. That's a little bit like more serious than just him going, yeah, I've done a shit ton of roids to become Thor, But yeah. No, I agree. I mean, I'm not going to dip into too much of that because I have actual like no knowledge of what it is you're talking about or if it's true. Well, I'll study up for the next one, and we'll lawyer up as well, just in case there is some more slander said. Because it might not, there's two Hemsworths. It might not even be this guy. It might be the other Hemsworth. That would be fucking embarrassing. So very, very on brand for me and this podcast to mix them up. So aside from that, Thor: Love and Thunder, I mean, like, everyone is probably talking about this, right? Because it's the first time we've been able to see this. And it is exactly as cheap as I thought it was going to be in my head. sure. You know, like it's hard to have. I can't. I don't look at this and have like loud opinions like I have with other things because it's just like so. I know we joke about Marvel being like manufactured and shit, but like this whole image is just manufactured to be exactly what was expected, right? It's like they literally sat a bunch of people in a room with like mind machines and like sucked out their thoughts of like when they're like, oh, picture this. And everyone does it, and then 6 people's gets run through an AI, and then it just creates this image. That's what's happened here, you know? Like, it's exactly what everyone expected. Do you have any thoughts about this particular thing?
Well, just looking at the image now, I'm wondering how many people who don't know that's Natalie Portman before watching the trailer are going to know that's meant to be Natalie Portman, or if they're just going to think it's a new Thor.
That's true.
Yeah.
Oh God, white men are going to be so angry. Holy shit! I didn't even think about that.
White men who would actually had zero problem with anything beforehand, but now that they have something to choose to be upset about, they're going to be going fucking 90 miles an hour down the motorway, screaming out their window.
James Bond Thor shouldn't be a woman. Now this. Now fucking Doctor Who. Oh my God. I actually fully hadn't even considered that because I just thought it was like such a given that this was going to happen from like minute 1 of the first Thor movie or whatever, that like this was the direction that I just thought everyone knew this is a thing like the whole time. And you've just now pointed out the scary reality.
Well, this is the thing I was going to say with the main trailer, or the main point of the trailer, is that they set up Thor being against or turning a new page in his life and not being fighty action whatever man. So I don't know if I'm just being like baited by the trailer or not, but is the point here that they're opening up the door for Chris Hemsworth not being part of the movies after this? Because if you think about Endgame, the main 3 of Thor, Iron Man, Captain America. Iron Man and Captain America obviously are completely done and removed from. I say completely. You never know if they're gonna find the extra $1 billion it would take to bring him back. If they need like a break glass here. So yeah, he's the last one of those 3 main standing. So it's kind of like a weird loose end of what the fuck do you do with him now? And it might just be the point of this is it, and then we'll use this to transition to Natalie Portman Thor.
Oh, okay. That's an interesting idea. What? So this is like the kind of like victory lap, like because they had to do something, and because they had to do like the like internal obligation to give him like a dumb movie alongside the Guardians and that kind of stuff. Of like, is that what you're hinting at? Like, it's a stocking filler ahead of the next arc or whatever.
Yeah, that's the vibes I get from it. Because again, like you see the Guardians in this trailer, like you just said, you get the hints of them. Like it just screams out to me, they're here because that's how Endgame ends, but they're going to be gone by the end of the first act. You see them literally leave the movie in this teaser trailer. Yeah. I mean, maybe they jump back for the end of the movie for the climax where they just come back to be part of the action, add some reinforcements, whatever. But yeah, it all just seems like a very weird transition phase of we ended here with Endgame. We now need to find a way to move forward and deal with all this. Yeah. And it's just the thing of, again, the MCU, this is what it is now, where it's so involved with other stuff and it's just expected that you know what's happened before. And the movies are so big that you can almost justify it, where Endgame, actual biggest movie of all time, is what's followed up to this. Like, the number of people that are going to go and pay to see this movie that haven't seen Endgame is going to be such a tiny percent of the box office. So it's just kind of interesting in that way.
Yeah. And it's, someone pointed out, this is the only Marvel hero who has an independent movie that is the 4th one of. No one else has had a 4th, which is surprising because like the second Thor was just so fucking panned by everything, critically and also like money wise. Like it's quite stunning that of all the characters, this is what stuck around. But I guess it's contract and things behind the scenes that they're like probably pretending is more exciting than it actually is.
Well, and Ragnarok. Like, people fucking love Ragnarok.
Yeah,
I think I'm kind of in the opinion it's like again, fine. It might just be the character that doesn't do that much for me. I like Taika Waititi, but it's like by far his weakest film, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Probably not a very
it's one of those things where
thing to say,
you watch it and it's good, but it's good for like Marvel standards, and Marvel standards are like, it's either phenomenal or fucking abysmal. So like good by Marvel standards is like lower half of Marvel's like creative output, in my opinion. So
yeah, I don't know if I'd agree with that.
Well, a lot of it is just grey though, isn't it? Like a lot of it is just sits in that horrible place where like you watch it once out of obligation. You don't hate it while you watch it, but you would never go back because it secretly bores you, and you didn't realize it bored you until you tried to watch it again or whatever. Yeah.
The one last thing I'd say is I'd maybe go against something you said earlier about like expecting female Thor, Natalie Portman Thor, whatever, because it kind of strikes me a little bit in a way we were talking about Kenobi, in the kind of cynical way of looking at it, in that you're only making this because you need the thing that people know to happen.
Yeah.
Whereas at one point they were quite clearly happy to not involve Natalie Portman anymore, whether it was scheduling or her just not wanting to do it or money or whatever. Where it's the second Avengers movie where he just goes, oh, she's off doing something. And then in the third movie, they're just like, oh yeah, we broke up. It's cool. It's fine. And you just don't see her. And now, because they want female Thor to be a thing, now they've had to go back and be like, do you want to have roughly $20 billion added to your bank account so we can do this thing?
Yeah.
So we can have this moment in the trailer, you know?
Yeah. And also, like, what is this moment going to be in the movie? Is it going to be central to the movie? Is it going to be just like a nothingy? Is this going to be the same moment from the trailer, just extended over like 15 minutes of screen time? Do you know what I mean by that? Like, is it supposed to stand on its own, or is it supposed to have the same impact of, we give you the impression that this is now going to happen rather than that this has happened in this film? What do you think is going to happen?
It's got to be a major thing, I think. I think that this will definitely have to follow Natalie Portman beforehand, like her point of view, and set it up and establish it. Them just pulling it out of their arse and plonking it in halfway through the movie, I feel like that would be very odd. Or if maybe I guess they can like go back and then explain how it happened or whatever. But I don't see this just being some wacky thing they throw in because comic reference and because female Thor.
Yeah. I mean, let's hope not, because I feel like if that does happen, that will just feed the angry football man driving home at 90 miles an hour. That will just feed his anger, and he will have to, you know, throw beer bottles at walls some more and all that kind of stuff. But in a similar vein of kind of just pulling random shit out your ass and using it as some kind of cameo to like surprise the viewers into thinking that they're enjoying themselves. What a lovely way to describe the show Obi-Wan Kenobi, in this wonderful headline from The Direct that says, Obi-Wan Kenobi actor teases wonderful cameos in the Disney Plus show. To me, I mean, like, I don't want to be the guy who is now like just constantly against this thing, but we've talked about it on the podcast before. I've messaged you it before, and I said, I think I summed it up best ever in a message to you that I think was just after our last podcast, where I said, Easter eggs and cameos are the commodity now. The movie exists solely to sell the Easter egg or the cameo. And this property has been a fucking piece of meat in a lion's den of this already before this headline came out. And now this shit is happening. And I just don't understand how Disney can go from Palpatine's back and that everyone hates it to them going, oh yes, well, we'll just bring more back, right? We'll just bring more people back. Like, this viscerally offends me in every way. How do you feel, George?
Once again, it just feeds into... It's such a weird thing, right? It's like I grow more powerful in my opinions and my stance when I shit talk Star Wars, of that my whole thing, which I say over and over and again, of the superficial things in the prequels, of the thing you know. And this is just driving that point more and more. Of this is how they can sell this stuff of recognize this thing that used to happen or that happened when you were young and you enjoyed, and don't think it's all just emotional. Like this thing because you know it from your childhood or from before when times were better.
Yeah.
And it is quite not unnerving, but just very scary that it's now just outwardly being used as a marketing point. Here's this thing that you're going to recognize, and it won't actually have any indication of whether a story is good or bad. It's just here. It's very treating audiences like this, and worse, knowing that it will work. It's just very scary.
Well, not even knowing it will work, but just having the balls to do it like out of the shadows, do it in the light, and it still probably work. Like knowing that they have the balls to do this. But like, just for the uneducated listening, like this has come out in a quote from an actor, Rupert Friend. I guess his name is Friend, right? That's probably how you pronounce it, given it's spelt that. So this is like coming out of an actor's mouth, allegedly. For those who don't know, actors tend to act, and so therefore his PR team has written this for him at the request of Disney to do this. So don't think this is like, oh, it just so happens that this happened or whatever. Like whenever an actor talks about a project they're in, it's because someone has paid their PR team to give them the script to then read that out on whatever. And you could probably give me like 3 exceptions of that. And Mark Hamill is probably like immune to the money here when it comes to that. He's probably the only person in Star Wars history who is just like, and Harrison Ford, I suppose, like who just loudly just doesn't give a fuck, and no amount of money will stop them from saying their like very true opinions. But this is like Disney have gone, hey, you know, this reporter is going to ask you, what's the best thing about Kenobi? I want you to say it does everything you remember, and it does it loudly, and you have wonderful cameos from, you know, the thumbnail alludes to Mace Windu, Qui-Gon Jinn, you know, fucking Luke Skywalker, Anakin Skywalker. Like, think of all the people you love in the Star Wars and just say some names. It doesn't matter if they're in it or not, because it will sell the thing. Oh, maybe this person turns up. And then you got the fucking articles, which just go even worse. Like, don't trust anything. This isn't someone sincerely saying wonderful cameos that made me feel really happy. This is someone saying, you will feel happy watching this movie. You will remember the things you love. And you probably will. And you'll watch it and you'll remember them and you'll be like, wow, cool. I really wish they didn't fucking bring that into this shit show TV show, you know? Like,
I was just thinking how we're going to have like the exact opposite reaction that's intended and that most people are going to have when, again, I said before, I'm fully expecting Liam Neeson to show up as Qui-Gon Jinn as some Force Ghost flashback, whatever bullshit.
Yeah. And
like, it is just so weird knowing I'm going to automatically have the exact opposite reaction they want me to. Like,
yeah.
Here's a good example. Again, we grew up with the prequels and Star Wars and everything. My favorite Jedi growing up was Kit Fisto, a guy who has actually 0 lines in any of the prequels because he looks fucking cool and he has a green lightsaber, and green lightsabers were cooler than blue ones. If he shows up in this series, I'm going to turn into those white men complaining about Thor, smashing beer bottles against my wall, punching through the drywall, Adam Driver Marriage Story style. I'm going to be so fucking mad because I feel like I'm going to be played. Meanwhile, you're going to have fucking millions of Star Wars fans going, "Whoa, Kit Fisto, get in," with all their fucking Funko Pops behind them and everything. It's going to be wild. I actually can't wait. It's so ominous how it's creeping up, the release date of Kenobi. But I think I am genuinely looking forward to it, just to see what the fuck happens and how we end up reacting to it.
Yeah. I think it's going to be one of those things where it's like, it will be very highly reviewed because it will do everything everyone wanted. And we are just going to be so fucking angry watching it, red-faced angry watching it, that like the podcast may just end. We might just not be able to speak about it without fucking setting off another minefield. It is what it is. Wonderful. When is it? Oh God, fucking don't tell me. I don't want to know.
It's late May. I know.
It'll say at the bottom of the
27th. Yep. I want to say.
Obi-Wan Kenobi releases May 27th.
Damn, we got a whole 6 weeks left.
Yeah, this is another top tip for you. You can tell it's a press release written by Disney when they plug this shit, because it will be at the bottom of the press package that they got. This article writer will say, please include the line, Obi-Wan Kenobi releases May 27th exclusively on Disney+. Anyway, cameos are a thing that are now happening outside of Marvel movies, right? Marvel movies are now the blueprint for how Doctor Who is running its show on the BBC. Now, this is an interesting one because not this actual headline. I don't really give a fuck about this. This is exactly what we just talked about and more. But what I find really interesting is, did you see that article? We might have even included it in one of the episodes. I can't even remember. But did you see that discussion of the producers of Doctor Who wanting to make it more like Marvel and outwardly saying, we want Doctor Who to be more like Marvel? They've fucking done it. They've fucking done it already. It's happening. We're bringing back 2 legacy Doctor Who old school companions from the 7th Doctor and 5th Doctor's timelines. And people love it because people love thing they remember. And, again, it's that thing of the people who don't know it will feel left out because everyone else who's a Doctor Who fan will be losing their shit over it. And so therefore we'll learn it and then be more excited than the people who knew in the first place. I'll be honest with you. I've seen the shots, the pictures. I haven't bothered to watch the trailer because I just don't give a fuck about Doctor Who anymore, and nothing, not even this, could bring me back. Also interesting to me that Ace was a bit of a fan-liked companion, but it is also, that's the companion from the series that killed Doctor Who for the first time straight up before the reboot. So it's an interesting play, but yeah, I don't know, man. Do you have any thoughts of Doctor Who?
No. I have maybe thoughts on other Doctor Who news, which we might cover in a second.
I see.
But yeah, I don't really have a thought on this. Again, it's just kind of unfortunate that this is the trend. Yeah. This is where we're going. Yeah.
I mean, I know the thing you're referring to. We will add this as an extension, but we won't go into the whole fucking article because it will just stress me out too much. I also want to just issue a correction to myself. I don't know which doctors did I just say the companions are from? Because this pisses fucking Whovians off so bad. If you mess up a Doctor Who stat, it's worse than fucking Star Wars.
I believe one of them is from, I was reading about it this morning. One of them's from the 4th Doctor and one of them's from the 7th or 8th Doctor.
Yeah, so it's Tegan is from the 5th, which is fucking whatever his name is, Pete Davison. Pete Davison, different guy, Peter Davidson. And then the Ace is from, I think I said the 8th, but I actually meant the 7th because the 8th is the TV movie Doctor, Paul McGann. This is actually from Sylvester McCoy's series that killed the franchise. Anyway, so the thing that you just referred to or alluded to is that there's wild speculation, as we already talked about on the podcast, that David Tennant will be returning as the Doctor, at least for a little fling or whatever in the next coming up series. Unfortunately, it looks like that may be coming true. We might have to, keep our eyes on this ahead of the next episode, because in the coming few weeks, I think it will be announced who the next Doctor is in a big PR stunt. But I've heard lots of conflicting information, not just from online sources, but also from offline people I know who know things, have given me conflicting information about this. So I can near enough guarantee that David Tennant will appear. Do I think he is the next Doctor again? probably not. I think there is someone else lined up, and I think it will probably piss people off. We'll see. That's my prediction. That's what I'm putting out. That's what I'm putting up front. Tell me about your thoughts on David Tennant potentially returning.
Well, yeah, it's something that we talked about whenever it was we were talking about Doctor Who before, 3-4 weeks ago, however many days have passed. It's just such an easy idea to, again, just cash in on this thing you know. When did David Tennant's series, when did they run? It was mid to late 2000s?
Yes. So it would have been like 2006 to 2009, probably.
Right. Okay, so 2006.
Or 2005, so maybe even. Can't remember how many years.
17 years. 17 years ago he started. So we're not quite at our sweet spot we talk about of 20 years, 25 years. Yeah. Still, we're close enough. And with, again, I don't watch Doctor Who, but I am aware that the Jodie Whittaker casting, and I think there's like companion stuff that people get pissed off about, whether it's just their ethnicity or what. But it makes people upset because it's whatever.
Yeah.
It's like such a classic, how do we get everyone on side again? And we bring back the dude that is just unanimously loved by every single person on planet Earth. Yeah. And it's, again, the thing they know, where he can come back in what does he wear? Converse? Are those his sneakers? Or whatever? Yeah. You can have that. You can have his special TARDIS and his sonic screwdriver and his suit and his long coat, everything like that. And you just have it all. And it's just there. And again, you have it for the one last ride, 90-minute special or 2-parter, whatever they do. And you generate all the buzz. And then you, after that, carry on to new stuff. And then you're right back where you started.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah. No, it's crazy. And actually, you just reminded me of something. I've been seeing a trend in all of a sudden, a lot of news articles are talking about Donna Noble, the companion that was played by Catherine Tate. I've just had a sudden fucking brainwave moment that my red flag is if more than 3 newspapers are talking about the same thing, it's because they've been paid to. And I'm all of a sudden thinking Catherine Tate is kind of on a comeback now as well, in terms of she just released a new film, she just released a new TV show. I've just had a fucking striking revelation that not only will David Tennant come back, but also probably Catherine Tate will come back for this special and just do another special. They're both of them have been very open to do the audiobooks before. So I think they're still attached to their characters so much. It's just whether the paychecks will get them in. And I think given the intent of bringing this back to like Marvel standards and like kicking off anew, I think this is what will happen. Mark my words. This is documented evidence now. If this happens, who knows?
I thought you were leading that with the Donna Noble, Catherine Tate stuff with they're going to phase that to it's the first companion to become the Doctor somehow. Because there's even precedent with the Dr. Donna stuff in whatever season it was, that last one with David Tennant before all the specials, where she ends up with like the galaxy in her brain or something. Yeah. She ends up being super smart. And yeah, again, that would be a thing you know, and it would be different. They can say it's different, even though it's the same thing you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would make sense to a Doctor Who purist, though.
Who knows? I think we just got to wait and see. But mark all the words in this podcast because I reckon some of them are true. Probably not the stuff all about of them because probably not the stuff about Chris Hemsworth and the steroids. Maybe like I don't want to commit to that being marked as true so much, but you know. We did also have like a couple more pieces of news, but we've been talking for so long about this kind of stuff. I think it's worth just like glossing over the fact that Fantastic Beasts 3, it's been announced all the gay stuff is like cut out of the Chinese release in a hilarious act that will make the movie worse on every front, almost, because that's like the one redeeming thing that keeps you interested throughout the movie. So yeah. So that's a bit of a shame. So let's gloss over that. Let's just acknowledge the fact that unfortunately, the movie will be even worse than it was for us, for you in China. Let's talk about the movie we went and watched this week. And it's a movie that actually this podcast comes out at the perfect time for, because it's just released in the UK. It will release in the US by the end of this week, in theory. What did you think? Northman by Robert Eggers.
So going into this, I'm going to do a little prelude. Robert Eggers is a really great filmmaker. And The Witch, everyone who's seen it and, you know, is into movies and film and all that, knows how fucking hard that movie slaps and how ridiculous it is that a guy's first film is that fucking good. Yeah. And it's also the thing of it came out in 2015, so I was, 16 years old. Like, proper, when your film bro mind starts forming and gestating and all that. And watching that, it was like such an experience of being like, holy fuck, this is Martin Scorsese cinema right here. So I've been very happy to see Robert Eggers continue, and The Lighthouse is obviously fucking really good with Willem Dafoe and Rob Pattinson, and just how like strong the style and tone is. And it's great to see a new filmmaker like being born in front of us, and how fucking great his films are, and how much of like a stamp he has. And then learning about this movie, I was just like nothing but scared. Knowing it's going to have a budget that's like 50 billion times more than either of his past two films. It's going to be done by Universal, and people are going to have certain standards. He doesn't yet have, in my brain, the Del Toro seal of approval we were talking about, where he's like a universally known director where they can say best picture winner, best director winner, whatever, Robert Eggers. So going in, I was worried about him not having that sway, and it being, he had to kind of like marry the more blockbustery action elements with what he wants to do, and it would be a weird mismatch.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I didn't have to worry about that in the end, because it fucking banged this movie. It was so good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fucking awesome. It like, I think actually like my thoughts about it are actually like almost not tainted, but like permanently like affected by the same like fears. I was walking in with the same exact fears, except I was more fearing that they would try and force him to do a blockbuster version of his normal house style, or they would do his normal house style just with like bigger actors or that kind of thing. Somehow bigger actors, like he doesn't use the like current biggest actors ever or whatever. Like, but I almost, the thing that made me really happy walking out of it was that he just kind of just commit to just making like just a fun movie that he clearly really cared about. You know, it doesn't have the like, I saw a lot of like discussion and commentary of the fact that it doesn't have the kind of like depth and like complexities that something like The Witch has. But like no studio told him don't do that. He just went, I just want to make a sick movie about fucking Vikings and shit. And he's like nailed that. You know, he's like absolutely nailed that. It really worked across the board when it came to that. And actually, I think one of my biggest like ingrained criticisms that I was feeling when I walked out was that they probably should have given him more money. Like, I don't think there was enough money. Like, what he's done, he went, holy shit, I've got a load of money. I can make something like even bigger and better now. And even then, he like tickles the edge of what money can buy you with this. There's moments where that you can see where they've cheaped out on one thing so that the other thing can be bigger and stuff like that. And like, none of it's bad. None of it is bad at all. But like, there's moments where polish is traded for like just another scene to be like 4 times as epic as it needed to be in the script or whatever. And I just love that he just cast out any doubt, and he just did a fucking sick, like stylistically complete and whole movie that just slaps, as you say, it just bangs.
Yeah, I would agree that in terms of depth, it's not a priority with the story and characters or anything like that. Far from it. And I would say that's one of my, not really a complaint, but if I were to say like one of the more lackluster parts is that whole side of it with the characters especially, and the main relationship you see that forms.
Yeah.
And how
we'll come back to this. We'll come back to this properly. Carry on. But I've got a big point about this. Go on.
But yeah, the main thing I was happy to see retained from the past two is just that feeling of this is a Robert Eggers movie. And it's just everything about like the camera work, how long shots are held. I was stunned to be watching this $90 million action movie. It's like, it must have been, have you seen Children of Men?
I have, but so long ago that it like is fading. Go on.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the whole thing with that is it's filled with like lots of long, really well orchestrated takes and things like that.
Yeah.
And this movie doesn't have anything on that scale where it doesn't have scenes that last actually 10 minutes or shots that last actually 10 minutes. But it's just a thing of so many things are allowed to play out and be captured in how the sequence runs.
Yeah.
And it's just so, I was so shocked to see a near $100 million action movie that's as brutal as it is, and it isn't about anything particularly, groundbreaking or novel, and it isn't some artsy story or anything like that. It's just allowed to be made like this with a guy who clearly has such a clear idea of what he wants to capture, and it all comes together. And you have, I can't, I'm just repeating myself, but I was just stunned that he was able to do it and that it works as well as it does, and it looks as good as it does. And it serves what story there is in such a strong, well put together way. Yeah,
I think it's like as we say, stylistic completement and like completion of like it is. You can see it as a single vision from a single source who has done their absolute best to like coordinate everything. Like again, I hate the concept of this, but it is that like kind of authorship like theory of like this guy knew exactly what he was trying to make, and he told enough people concisely enough to prove that vision could float. And so he got money for it. He got people who wanted to support that vision in the crew, who have done, like, the cinematographer did a fucking amazing job at like shooting this in such a way that clearly goes with the styling of the thing. Everything about it just fucking slapped. I thought it banged. And I said to you before the podcast, I'm going to almost hyperfixate on, like, I think this movie is like 95, 96, 98% perfect. I think that I'll hyperfixate on the kind of 5 to 2% that I think deserves criticism, because it's so perfect that these things stand out like way too much than they should do. But so it will sound like I will hate this movie, but I fucking adored it. I thought it was amazing. But go on anyway.
Just going back to the style thing, I was thinking about how well it juggles the blend of more emotional, grounded stuff and how that's captured. Like even the scene at the beginning with Ethan Hawke, where, spoilers, it's a revenge movie, main character's dad is the one who gets killed. That whole scene where he's confronted at the beginning and is killed, it's just so raw, even while it's grand, and you have all these guys speaking this old English, and they've got their fucking Viking shit on and all that. They've got their armor. He's got the uncle's helmet. It's like a bird or a crow helmet or something like that, and it looks fucking sick.
Yeah,
it's all just so out there, but it's also so, yeah, just again the weight of the emotions that are being delivered land so hard. And then at the same time, you'll jump to the far more mystical, mythological stuff, and how that's demonstrated with the visions or the antics or the fucking skull. Remember, I don't want to say whose skull it is, but it's the fucking skull. What a fucking sick prop, by the way. Whoever has that in their living room, I hope that isn't in the studio. I hope someone took that home and just has that on a mantelpiece somewhere. Like, holy fuck, it's so cool. Or even the sword. I'm scared. I'm like becoming a Star Wars fan. With like, oh, this thing's cool. This thing is cool. This thing is cool. The fucking Nightblade. Oh my god. But yeah, it's all of it is captured in different ways, and the action's the same thing. Where again, it isn't filmed in the same way, but it's filmed in the right way, and it's all brought together to be coherent and cohesive.
Yeah. And but you said about you feel like a Star Wars fan just being happy about cool things being cool, but like they are so well earned throughout the film that there's not a moment that you're not suspended in that disbelief of like, wow, that's fucking awesome. Because you're not thinking about how, you know, how it's negatively affecting the plot or anything like that. You're thinking about, God, this guy's earned this thing to happen, or this thing, you know, and yeah, it just slaps. Like, again, it just like, everything about it was really like solidly, meticulously placed to work in that way. And I almost like, this may be an easy comparison because they're so similar in kind of tone and also so similar in like mythology, maybe a little bit because of the times that they've come out as well. But like, I almost think that this stood next to like Green Knight is like one of those things where Green Knight, everything wrong with Green Knight that I didn't like about Green Knight is rectified by this movie doing it correctly. Like, Green Knight felt like 50% studio money, 50% someone trying to be artsy, and means that neither of those things work as well as they could. Like, it could be more artsy or it could be more blockbuster schlocky. This was like the perfect balance of like, I had no problems with either of them. There's actually one bit, which is maybe a bit too much of a spoiler to like go into, but there's one bit where like a character sees something happening and then it didn't actually happen. And that's the only bit where I feel like you probably could have just cut that and it would have like just flowed a little bit better. And that's the only bit where I think the style accidentally confronts itself. And even then it does it in such a like cool, overt, like just epic way that you kind of forget about it by the time that it's over and it's all happened. But I think like that's what I mean by like, I really enjoyed Green Knight in different ways, but I feel like what Green Knight sucked at, this movie was great at. And it is just that thing of like just committing to just doing one thing and doing it well. But yeah, and I don't know whether you have any thoughts about bringing Green Knight into the comparison here, but
no, it's a thing where I normally do kind of get on people for comparing things. But yeah, I couldn't stop myself but thinking of Green Knight while I was watching the Northman.
Yeah.
And you and I once again did agree with the Green Knight, or on our opinions with the Green Knight, where yeah, it just kind of had that weird clash of the filmmaking and more artistic side of it in terms of how it's being presented and made, but it marrying it with the story. It's like it was trying to keep that kind of like independent, artsy, very bare bones storytelling with it.
Yeah.
But it was in a way where it just made everything have less impact for us. Like maybe we're just like dumb.
Yeah.
Our minds are too rotted by blockbusters. But the whole thing of like the different points of the story are meant to reflect this and this and this. Except for it's never set up in the film itself whatsoever that they're meant to be reflecting this stage of the journey, then this stage and this stage and this stage. And it all just ends up feeling like well filmed, well made stuff that doesn't have too much of an impact in itself. Whereas, this film definitely had its story is maybe a bit simpler than The Green Knight, but it works much, much better.
Yeah.
I feel, in terms of how they deliver what the themes are. And yeah, just as a story, it flows much better with you understanding what the point of everything is.
Yeah. Jumping off your point about it being simpler, this is where I go into my 5% criticisms. So there's one thing in this movie that is just too simple, like just objectively is like too simple, kind of no excuse for it. And that is just women in general. Like anytime a woman is on screen, it is like the most simplified, nullified vessel. Like we joke about like the Bechdel test and how outdated it is, and like what even is it? I can't even remember. It's like if two women are on screen at any one, like, so firstly, two women have to talk to each other independently of talking to a man. Secondly, they have to talk about anything other than the man for it to pass the Bechdel test. This is like the actual opposite of the Bechdel test. This is like women only exist to serve this man's story in every front. Like there's no like where you say simple, there is no like depth or complexity in any of the female characters in this. There's one big moment that surrounds a particular female character, and that feels unearned because of how one-dimensional and simple the whole thing is. And it's like, it almost like, that was the one thing that was like almost laughably like, I could see why it was set aside, because this is fundamentally a story about like toxic masculinity and like confronting who you are as a person, as a man. You know, that's like the central theme of the film throughout. So I understand, but it's like when you bank that hard on certain beats happening in the story, like it's like too simple for me. I think it's like laughably simple at times. And you alluded to like a certain relationship that builds throughout the movie. I think go into detail on that, because I'd imagine it's a similar feeling to that. But go on.
Yeah, it's that whole relationship that just sort of stunk to me of, this is the kind of thing that happens in these movies, and it needs to happen exactly like you imagine it will, and that's exactly how it goes down. And it's nothing's really done, especially with the female character, that to sell it all that hard of how these characters feel about each other and what happens to them, why they react as hard as they do.
Yeah.
And that other moment you just alluded to with another character, that was a strange thing I had, because you're right, in terms of the character herself, it's very like, okay, this is just kind of thrown in here. Maybe rewatching it, I'd feel less bad about it. But yeah, in terms of the story, I was actually quite, I was quite shocked what happened. I very rarely like physically react in a cinema. I was full on wincing, cringing at the kind of like the apex of that scene. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I was quite happy to see that there was that not really a twist, but that kind of that wrinkle in the story where up until that point it is so set in just simple revenge tale.
Yeah.
I was happy that it happened in that way. But yeah, in terms of like a character move, it's a bit kind of, I'm not really sure how I feel about it.
Well, it's like, because the character, before that moment, the character's too simple. After that moment, or that moment in particular, is like completely out of character for that character, but it's still super fucking like simple, and like I don't want to say I expected it to happen, because I didn't fully expect it to happen, because it was a twist that actually hit me as well. But like that, it's still like not like a cliche or like a trope, but it's still like such a simple, and there's quite a lot of like telling the audience slightly away from camera your motivations, and it just kind of, that's what I mean about like it's a little too simple for the female characters, in my opinion. But again, in keeping with the theme of the film, in keeping with like the flow of the film, it makes sense. But maybe it's just a thing of like, maybe even if your film is about that, you have to do some kind of justice to the characters and the world you're upholding. Like they have to have, for them to be like a character you believe, like you believe they exist, you believe they think and feel their own things. Like I can't say that any of the female characters in this movie had me thinking they were like real people, or like they had any lives outside of our protagonist's life. So I thought that was kind of like, that was maybe my biggest criticism. And then my only other criticism was like, not in like a cinema sinsy, like overanalyzing the bullshit here, but like the level of polish of certain scenes. Maybe it's a pandemic thing, maybe it's a like reshoots thing. There's like individual shots in scenes that just have like, for no apparent reason, are just visually like cheaper than the shots they're next to. And again, it's one of the scenes I alluded to a second ago, where a character kind of thinks something is happening, but it isn't happening, and that's the end of that scene, is that. And like, not that that's a huge plot point or anything in the film or anything, but it's just a scene, a moment where there's like, I don't know, that's one where like you see a shot and you're like, oh my God, like maybe it stands out so much because like, as I say, 98% of the movie is like perfect, actual like shots, finished, polished, perfect. They jump out because it's like you're juxtaposing something like fucking amazing next to something like okay, good. And like, just, yeah, it's a polished thing. It's some moments lack that polish, and they're few and far between. But I don't want to spoil it, but like photographically, I'm like seeing the shots, the moments, the beats that they're like playing in my head because they stuck out so much to me. And that's maybe why I think chuck an extra like 10 million on the budget and that would have been fine. But you know. Go on.
That moment you're talking about that kind of stands out. Is it something that's called back to at the end of the movie?
Yes. Yeah.
If I know, this is really difficult, not actually talking about and just outright saying what we're talking about. If that is the scene I'm thinking of, I had a similar reaction at the moment it happened, and it was only at the end of the movie where I realized why it happened in the first place.
Yeah.
Where it stunk to me of a test audiences reacting negatively to the ending and not understanding what was happening.
Yeah.
So they fit in a scene beforehand to kind of explain away what that would be. And then when it happens at the end, it's like, oh, I get it. And it might just be a thing of they thought that before they made it and they assumed visually it wouldn't work on its own. So they added that thing before.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a thing where that earlier moment, it feels very, again, just odd and out of place, and it doesn't quite tie in together how it begins and how it ends and what follows, and it's all a bit kind of messy there. I definitely agree with what you're saying, if it is that moment.
Yeah, I think it is that moment, and in context, because it's almost a bookend of a moment, isn't it? Like there's a callback at the end, as you said. Like as in context, it makes a lot of sense, but when you see it for the first time, when you're going through the motions for the first time, you don't get that as much as you could get that. And even that scene, I also mean this like of a technical nature. Like that scene looks like it was reshot later with less money, with less time to fit the bill of a test screening or to fit the bill. So like I think that theory really holds up to me because that scene lacks the polish that the rest of the film has. But not even that scene, it's just that particular section of that particular scene looks visually slightly different to the scene that happens around it as well. Like there's like a lot of, I think maybe this is like let's go back and rewatch this and see if that holds up, because I think your theory just now has just like put the whole thing into perspective for me. I would not be at all surprised if that is why that scene exists, because it's a fucking weird scene in the first place. B, that scene looks technically different because it was filmed separate or it was filmed different. But yeah, watching it the first time, I think that was when I really started thinking of the Green Knight comparisons, where I was like, this feels like Green Knight to me, where I can still enjoy it for what's happening, but there is a disconnect between what I'm meant to be getting out of this or why it's here. Yeah. Exactly the same feeling. And I'm glad that you say that, because I thought I was crazy. I spoke to the person I went to see it with, and they fucking loved it. They were like, yeah, it's amazing. But like something was viscerally wrong, and I'm glad that we've kind of unpicked this somehow without even spoiling what happens in the scene. Pretty impressive stuff. But that's about the end of where my criticism comes. Like, as I say, it's like a 96% perfect movie. And yet these, again, it's that pain of like the fact that my brain immediately goes back to that moment or those moments or those things before it goes back to the really, really cool stuff and the really, really positive stuff. Just goes to show how good the rest of it is and how only good / okay those bits are and how much they stick out. Yeah. But I mean, I could gush about the rest of the movie like unlimited amounts. And I'm sure as we leave the watershed of the movies come out after a little while. I'm sure it will come up in our discussions in this podcast, because there's just so much that is done so well that other movies could not like learn from, but other movies could learn the principles of like just committing to doing those big moments rather than like faking them or skirting around them. I could gush forever, but yeah.
To add my own kind of piss onto the fire and bring up the thing I wasn't wholly a big fan of. It's kind of it's not a problem unique to this movie, but the whole, when you have your story dominated by fate and prophecy, and that being one of the key elements, when there are moments where the movie has to stop itself and physically say, this can't happen yet because I'm told it has to happen later. I'm pretty sure the bit I'm talking about, where the main character literally says that.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff definitely took me out of the movie a bit, where I was like,
yeah,
okay, fine. If I get it, I want the marriage of the more conventional story that works and has the cool filmmaking stuff. I guess it's the price to pay for it. But yeah, that was a little bit of a fuck's sake. I wish this didn't have to happen.
Yeah. And actually there's like, I almost think that's another test screening thing again, of when the main character says that particular thing that you just said, it's visually shown immediately before that. And if you don't get the visual like gag, you're going to completely misunderstand it. And I'd imagine it was a thing of like, producer was like, hey, you might want to like have a character actually say that out loud. There's quite a bit of like say that out loud and as you say, it's like this is a good one where destiny and fate is like primary to the story. And everyone loves a destiny/fate thing where the prophecy is fulfilled at the end, not in the way you expect. Like that's the fundamental, like how you are supposed to make movies like that. And so it's not like a spoiler because I'm not going to tell you how it happens, but like, of course that happens in this film, because otherwise it would be a really fucking boring film if the prophecy was like told at the start and everything happened exactly as you expect. But like, I almost feel like where it should be a 60-40 split of 60% is on track, 40% it goes off track and solves itself a different way. Like this is almost, a lot of this movie kind of is like 75% it's on track and then 25% things change. And maybe that plays into that particular moment as well, of like the fact that they have to like quite clumsily say it because you're almost thinking like, why is this not just gonna happen now, but again, I don't think that like weakens it too much. My final like cinema sins point, I fucking hate chapter markers. This movie has like a very good, amazing one that I saw in your Letterboxd review, and everyone like I've spoken to about it goes like, knows the one you reference and thinks is fucking awesome. And I think that's awesome too. But like, what is with movies like this, of this like breed of directors feeling the need to have fucking chapter markers at any given moment? What is with that trend?
And it's a thing that I know I've said to you before, I really don't like it. Like, what was it? It was in the new Suicide Squad. That was another thing where it has those things where at least they're done in a more stylistic way, where they're made like diegetic, whether it's like made out of smoke plumes coming from fire that's just been created, or there's the one where it's like all the jagged offcuts of like rooftops, and that spells out something.
Yeah.
Or at least there's something to it. But yeah, like dividing your story up and like spoon feeding the audience that you're having like mini act breaks or whatever it is now, or just like segments of a movie, like their chapters, is very odd. But yeah, the one that stuck out to me, I think it just ties into, I think it's fucking awesome in movies when props and story elements and things like that are built up so that they have proper importance.
Yeah.
So something like a weapon is built up that way. And then when the title card ties into it, it's like the whole movie's teasing you basically.
Yeah.
Of this really important thing is going to be used at some point. And the title card is basically like, we're letting the leash off. You're about to see some fucking awesome stuff. And that's why it impacted me so well.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You
I do
spent
agree.
so long building up to that moment that when it says like, hey, spoiler alert, this is the chapter where that moment's going to happen. You're like, oh shit.
You're like,
I guess you really
fucking go.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do agree that there is a trend. I mean, fucking, what's his name? Tarantino does it.
Yeah.
Not always. I don't think he did it in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I mean, that movie has clear like act breaks.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to think of an example.
It just seems like, again, it's spoon fed. It just seems like unnecessary. It just seems like bloat. It seems like bloat that you have filled out your screen time with. Although, like I said like in this particular film, I would have thought more like other than the fact that the titles are fucking amazing. Like I almost wish like more stylistically whole of this would have been to just like not even have the English come up. And that's the way you break the film, with just the symbols that don't make any sense to anyone who doesn't understand the language. Like that's the kind of thing that I was thinking about, consciously thinking about while watching the film every time one of them came up. And it just made me think like, why are we even doing chapter markers in the first place?
Well, that idea that you just suggested of just having the symbols, and it kind of ties into my next point of, I feel like there's no way they'd ever do that, because that's stuff like that is a step too far for regular audiences.
Yeah.
Which moves quite well into the other thing I want to talk about, which is how just regular moviegoers are going to react to this. Going in for what they expect will just be a typical Viking action movie. And what they get is filled with a lot more than that, a lot weirder. That's the first thing I heard when the lights came up in my cinema. There was a group of 3 lads, a couple rows in front of me. One of them just like had to say the thing where like, that was fucking weird, wasn't it? And it's like the classic thing of they have to make sure the other guys know, that wasn't what we were expecting. That wasn't just like cool action. That was arty, wasn't it? I have to let them know that that's not what I wanted.
Yeah. Or that I was met with something I wasn't expecting or something. And to be fair, though, I almost think the marketing of this film is fucked, like completely fucked. Like, I don't know whether you've seen, like, all of the posters say, this generation's gladiator or whatever, that quote from that review. And like the trailer makes it look like a big, like blockbuster, meaningless blockbuster. I'm quite stunned that you're right. Like I think regular cinema goers are going to walk out and be like a little bit, they'll probably have still enjoyed it. There's enough in there that like is approachable and stuff, but they're going to be hit with something they weren't expecting and maybe not in a good way.
Special sauce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I also like it's doing fucking terribly right now. I mean, it's not out in the US, which is
I saw it the first day it came out and they had 2 screenings. And that's it. Fantastic Beasts was on its second week, it had 12 or something. Yeah.
I had to scroll to the very, very bottom of the list of the things the cinema was showing, including all the shit kids movies and Bollywood movies that were all playing. It was beneath all of them. So I think like this is going to be one of those ones that like the studio took a gamble and it won't pay off for the studio, but it will really pay off for Robert Eggers. And that's fine. I'm happy with that. Fuck the rest of them.
Well, I'm also, I mean, we can say the studio took a gamble, but I don't think I had a single trailer for this movie. Now, I go to the cinema on average like once a week, I'll say, with my fucking Limitless, where I just force myself to take the piss and watch a movie every week. But I honestly can't remember seeing a single trailer for this movie. I was going to see it anyway because it was a Robert Eggers movie, and I didn't watch trailers online. But yeah, I never had to avoid one in the cinema.
Yeah.
So
that's I saw. To be fair, like my cinema showed one basically every movie that I watched this year.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I don't know why. Yeah, as I say, like, but it's a trailer that's cut like it should fit in with the rest of the trailers when the movie very much doesn't fit in with Sonic 2 and Morbius and, you know, Fantastic Beasts with no gay version, you know?
That was something I was thinking before, where the trailers I was getting in front of the Northman were Top Gun and Doctor Strange. And I was looking around going like, oh no, this isn't, that was where I first sort of had the hint that this isn't going to be the movie people are thinking it's going to be, or that it's being sold as.
Yeah. Well, definitely, I think, closing up, unless you have any further thoughts, I think this is one of those movies that is like maybe the first movie of this podcast that has like truly delighted me. in every respect. Have we had any other movies on this podcast so far that have like done this for us, other than like Batman kind of did, I guess?
I was going to say the Batman.
But did Batman delight you as much as like this did? I think it definitely delighted me, but this kind of, I don't know. I went in with high expectations and I came out with even higher rewards, I feel. Whereas Batman, I kind of went in with low expectations and it delighted me regardless. Or cynical at the very least.
Yeah, they were kind of similar for me, where I was kind of hoping / expecting them to be good, but sort of capping how I'd maybe be thinking about them. And yeah, they both kind of beat what I was expecting. So
yeah. So go and see it. This is a few and far between go and see it moment. Next week, we now have to. I was trying to book a fucking cinema today, and all that's playing is Channing Tatum and Sandra Bullock's new movie.
Is that what we have to watch?
I hope not, but I fear it may be. I guess we'll see.
Oh boy.
Or I guess you guys will see in 1 week's time what happens.
I do. I do, especially after that cameo article for Kenobi you mentioned. I do want to do our tier list of what shit can pop up from the prequels. That will have to happen. I mean, we have 6 weeks, so we'll have to fill it in one of them. Yeah, that's going to happen.
Well, we could just go through each Star Wars movie and, jot them down, live jot them down. That sounds like a horrible time. I'm playing Lego Star Wars still, so I'm consuming Star Wars at the same time. So it would be a bit much, though. Like, I keep thinking back to how fucking boring the old ones are and how even worse the prequels are. I'm going to end this with a controversial statement. I was trying to think of like what's the most fun Star Wars movie to watch out of the original trilogy and the prequels. And I say, I think Revenge of the Sith is the most fun to watch one because it's just shit. Like when it's shit, it's funny. When it's not shit, it's kind of cool. Like none of the others have that kind of charm. Like Attack of the Clones, just boring. Phantom Menace, boring. 4, it's pretty cool, whimsical, funny, kind of shit. 5, long, very good, but very long. And then 6, shit. So like 3 just screams to me the best. Not the best.
I'm not going to agree with you, but I can see. I haven't watched any of them in a fair while. I say that like 2 years. But I can see that point of there's stuff in 3, like it's quite clearly the best made prequel, and there are elements that are sold quite well. I think of the scene with it's like the one element of visual storytelling in the entire prequel trilogy where Padme and Anakin are looking at each other across Coruscant.
Yeah.
And the kind of like very harrowing, it's like just like a lone choral, that's a complete oxymoron, lone choral, but a lone singer, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
it's kind of like the operatic.
Like screaming, wailing lady or something, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's like sold really well. So there are decent elements, and the effects still hold up, I think, quite well, considering it's a fucking 2005 movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, then you also get General Grievous and Hello There and all that shit, and that's like the complete opposite side of entertaining.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see what you're talking about.
Maybe we'll watch that next. You'll see. You'll see, guys.
Wow, was not expecting to end today like this. Fucking gonna have to hop on my Disney Plus account to open up fucking Revenge of the Sith this week.
Jesus, what are you talking about? Fold out the fucking 9 DVD collection that you have, 480p. Oh my god. I used to have the VHSs of the prequels, and I had the prequels and the original trilogy both bought from a car boot sale, and the Revenge of the Sith VHS was never in the box set collection. Like it was there. There was a space for it, but the person obviously liked it enough, and it was close enough to the time that they wanted to keep it because it was more valuable than the box set, clearly. Anyway, enough of that shit. Go watch Northman. Good night, everyone.